We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order on Tuesday, August the 13th. It is 3:03 p.m. I believe we have quorum, Ms.
Yes,
Jennifer?
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
Wonderful. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, before we get started with our regular agenda, I just want to comment that obviously the last 10 days have been really a very stressful, sad time for our community. You know, we've experienced something that I think all of us would agree we'd never thought we'd see in our lifetime, especially in our beloved community of people that love and accept. And that, with that being said, I just want to say that I can't be more proud of the team that we have here at UMC, at Texas Tech, and everybody that was involved on that day and for the last week, to see the way that everyone came together and you know, just focus on the mission, which is to save lives and to take care of people, was incredible. Makes me very proud to be a part of this board and a part of this organization. So with that, let's get started. Thank you all.
Thank you. So at this time, we do move to the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of items number 4 through 16. Are there any items that the board members would like to pull for additional discussion? If not, may we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arrieta?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda is approved. We now move to our regular agenda.
And before, Jennifer, before you get started, I just want to add, I think I was remiss in not mentioning Children's and Cindy's team, but, you know, my intent was everyone and the whole family. So, Cindy, I didn't mean to do that. Go ahead.
Thank you. So we now move to the regular agenda. Agenda item number 17, receive and take appropriate action on the CEO report for the El Paso County Hospital District doing business as University Medical Center of El Paso. Mr. R. Jacob Cintron, President and CEO.
Good afternoon. As Henry had mentioned, clearly last week was a very difficult week. We, had this active shooter on August 3rd and really challenged the organizations in the whole city, law enforcement, healthcare, and how they could handle this. Fortunately, a few months before, we had a mass casualty exercise throughout the city that helps prepare us for things like this. We hope we never have to put them in place, but when we do, then we get to see, our teams in action. And I will tell you that, I got notified about this by Dr. Tyrock, who was in Las Vegas at the time. And, when I got here, this room was packed with Texas Tech, El Paso Children's, University Medical Center, people working together in complete harmony. A lot of activity going on. Certainly, when you think about the number of patients that were coming in, it could easily become very emotional. But the professionalism of all these physicians, the surgeons, the staff in making sure that we had the proper patients identified with the proper name, that we knew what the conditions were, and this room was in service for days that way. When I went down to the ER, I was really moved with the, you go down into the ER, which is a big ER, and you go to the trauma center, and you find that there are surgeons, nurses, technicians lined up in the trauma corridor, the corridors, two corridors perpendicular to it, and the parallel corridor, filled with people that came in because they were called, and many that were not called, that showed up when they heard about it and knew that if any services were needed, they were going to be here. I had one person tell me, even if you don't need me, I'll get pizzas, I'll do whatever, I want to help. And so, we look at the the efforts, the families and the losses that they went through, the families and the hurt and damage they've gone through, our patients. No one could be prouder of how everybody worked together. I read an article, about, the physicians and this is true with our nurses and our caregivers. They don't have the luxury of being emotional when these things happen. They have to internalize it and focus on providing care for our patients. And when I hear the tales of what the patients went through before they got here, when I hear from our nurses and surgeons what they were going through, the doctors in the ER, it is amazing. These are heroes. And to see that after everything was said and done, that there was one article, I think it was in the New York Times, that talked about the emotions that they had to release. And so we know that we're going to continue to, provide the care for our staff, for our patients and their families, not just the physical, but sometimes the emotional and the things that they're going to have to deal with. No one could be prouder. We had 15 patients, 14 came in originally. Dr. Michelson, who's our chief of ER, said they had prepared, because remember initially the rumors were that there were 3 shooters in 3 different locations. We had enough staff here, including surgeons, to handle another 15 patients had we needed it. They were expecting a second wave, possibly a third wave, and they were standing by ready, waiting for the next wave to come in. No one could be prouder of the things they did and the service they provided. Of the 14, we then had a 15th transferred over from another hospital with a complex elbow fracture that could be best handled here. We had one that, passed away shortly upon arrival, sadly, and the other 14, we've had 7 that have been discharged, 2 are in ICU, 1 is in intermediate care, and 4 are in our surgical floor. And we expect all of them to be able to be discharged and pick up what they can of their lives that have been affected and shattered. Many of these victims didn't just get hit, they saw other people get hit. They saw other people die. Some of them, their own family members. So it's not going to be an easy road, and we're going to stand by them for as long as they need. We did receive a lot of elected officials coming to our facility, both parties and officials from Mexico, concerned about their own Mexican nationals that have been involved in this horrific event. We treated all with the respect due their office. Regardless of political affiliation or behavior, we treated all with the respect due the office. And I will tell you what I told my team yesterday. The care they got here was the best. I don't think they could have gone anywhere else and gotten better care, these patients. Care was never compromised, and we treated all visitors with the respect due. Family members looking for loved ones that might have been here or might not have made it. We treated everyone with that respect, and we stand proud of that. And so with that, I will tell you, I would match this team. And when I say team, it's UMC, Texas Tech, El Paso Children's with anyone in this state. So one thing we were very proud of is that we got a lot of people sending us food and water from as far away as Alaska. We had hospitals. One was a station, KHOU from Houston. They're on the left. They sent us this banner signed by a lot of their members, standing with us in this moment of need. The one on the right is from Metropolitan Healthcare in San Antonio. Metropolitan Methodist is an HCA facility. And they also sent us this banner. We're going to take these photos and frame them and send them back, letting them know that these were well received. I think our teams did not have to buy any meals. For a while, we were sending all the food down to the cafeteria for our staff. Many had to eat up in their stations because many of our patients, I'm fine, get my tea over there. But many of them were busy. They couldn't leave their stations. Many were in surgery. And so We're really appreciative of all the organizations that have provided us support. We got calls from the Texas Hospital Association, Ted Shaw, who, by the way, is an El Pasoan from Irvin High School. We received calls from the American Hospital Association, from Texas Teaching Hospitals of Texas, and other hospitals, including Parkland University in San Antonio, University Medical Center in Lubbock, willing and able to offer assistance. So we thank our fellow healthcare providers that were willing to support us in any way they could. Next, we were also recognized for our commitment to stroke. We received from the American Heart Association and the American Stroke Association Get With the Guidelines Target Stroke Honor Roll Elite Plus Gold Plus Quality Achievement Award. This is a reflection of the fine work that Dr. Cruz Flores, as Chief of Neurology, our neurosurgeons, and our stroke team downstairs have done. They are in a part of the bond money that we received, created the new neurostroke ICU, or neuro ICU, as well as a stroke monitoring unit. And these, along with the commitments that were made with Dr. Maoud and his other two neurointerventionists in their lab, really have made this program one that was recognized by Joint Commission as a comprehensive stroke center. We had mentioned this recognition before, but today we have Larissa De Luna, who's the Director of Quality, Education, and Analytics for the American Heart Association Southwest Affiliate. She's been with them for 14 years in various roles and is here to present to this hospital a certificate recognizing this great accomplishment with Texas Tech and UMC, so we're very proud of that.
Yes, congratulations.
Yep.
I'll say a few words.
Just gonna get a shot of you right here after.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Larissa De Luna with the American Heart Association, and I'm here to thank y'all for y'all's partnership with the AHA and American Stroke Association, and here to celebrate this great accomplishment that your hospital's achieved. Just to give you a little bit of background on what this award means and kind of the criteria that your hospital had to meet in order to get this recognition, which is the highest recognition that we give for stroke care at the AHA. Stroke hospitals focus on 7 performance measures. Gold hospitals have to follow those treatment guidelines and performance measures at least an 85% adherence rate in all patients, and that's for 2 consecutive years. Gold hospitals and then Gold Plus hospital recognition is awarded to gold level hospitals winning the gold award, but additionally demonstrating a 75% compliance in another self-selected group of measures. So there's 2 different measure sets they're looking at and trying to work on and accomplish. I think the part of the award that I'm most proud of for you guys is the Target Stroke Elite Honor Roll Plus, which is really focusing on door-to-needle times. So for this accomplishment, time to thrombolytic therapy within 60 minutes in 75% or more of acute ischemic stroke patients treated with IV TPA has to be met. And additionally, thrombolytic therapy within 45 minutes in 50% of stroke patients has to be met. So we're really looking at those door-to-needle times. We know that time lost is brain lost, so we're really focusing on making sure that those patients are getting in the door quickly and diagnosed and treated as quickly as possible. And that takes coordination with EMS activating in the field, contacting the ED, activating stroke teams and everything in order to make that accomplishment happen. So it's really about building the whole system of care that y'all have already demonstrated in the past 10 days. Y'all have that going on in this city, and y'all are doing great work. So I'd like to congratulate and bring up your stroke team to receive their award today.
Everybody in for a nice headshot. While we're doing this, I don't know if you introduced everybody that came with you.
This is Dr. Quorum, one of our neurocritical care neurologists. This is Dr. Cautry, our interventional radiologist. Oh, I'm sorry, my name is Dina. I'm the stroke coordinator. This is Carla Escobar, our director for neuroscience ICU and SMU. This is Dawn, he's our EMS coordinator. You all know Mr. Centrone. This is Larissa from our AHA.
And this guy over on the far right, Dr. Lang, president of the whole shebang.
Yes,
We get you in there right behind Carla, and we can get everybody in the shot. There we go.
I'm short.
All right.
I'm short. So hard.
Everybody look this way. Give us your big, bright Hollywood smiles. Everybody ready? Perfect.
We also on Friday, this last Friday, had a Joint Commission survey for our respiratory care and blood gases. And I will tell you that you would think after this week, the survey was like, I'm sorry, I know you've had a real busy week. So I don't know that I've ever been so glad to see a Joint Commission surveyor, but we did well there. We passed our blood gas through respiratory therapy successfully. Additionally, we were notified today that Medicare did send us a contract to El Paso Health to be able to get into that program. We go live January 1st, 2020. We begin to start member enrollment October 1st of 2019. So this is an area that we hope to expand the menu of services offered to our community. Typically, we've focused on Medicaid. We're now going to offer services in Medicare and Star Plus. And this will be a benefit for those in our community that use such products. And that completes my report. Are there any questions?
Any comments for Jacob? Questions?
Okay,
Jacob,
thank you.
Thank you again.
May we have a motion to accept the CEO report?
I second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arrieta?
Yes.
Thank you. The CEO report is accepted. We now move on to agenda item number 18, receive and take appropriate action on the Texas Tech University of Health Sciences Center at El Paso quarterly report. Dr. Richard Ling, President of Texas Tech.
Great, thank you. I thought I'd talk a little bit just about what an academic medical center does, and you can't do that without starting with the medical students. And I appreciate the fact that teaching is now a part of the mission of the University Medical Center. In fact, it's always been a part of the university's mission since 1973, as a matter of fact, when I went back and looked at the data. But what you see here is the white coat ceremony. The students start in July, they learn Spanish, and they get involved in the community to assess what the community needs are, and based upon that, they have to design research projects to meet those community needs. And then at the completion of that, they're allowed to begin their clinical work, and they start with receiving their white coats, which is they're signifying, they're accepting the mantle of becoming a physician and caring for patients, but particularly those in El Paso. And you see them holding notes. There were 104 students in the white coat ceremony, and about 1/5 of them from El Paso, by the way. And those notes are individuals that sponsored those white coats for $150. All 104 were sponsored by individuals throughout the city, and all those go to scholarships to fund medical students in the future. That's really important. So I want to acknowledge that. Now, once we get them here, we certainly want to keep them here. And I'm proud to say that the last residency match, we had 16 of the students stayed here for residency. Many went off because with their residency we don't even offer yet here. Urology, vascular surgery, pulmonary, things that we will develop over the next several years to keep the students here. But I thought it would be kind of fun to actually have the students meet some of our business leaders. So on the left you see Jerry Rubin, on the right you see Julian Minenberg. The left is our home. We had about 40 or 50 students. We just wanted to say what was so special about El Paso that business leaders would come here and put their stake in the ground as an effort over the next 4 years is to tell our students, and by the way, all the students on the left are from El Paso, by the way. Those on the right are students and also Progress 321, to hear from our business leaders so we can begin to show them the value and virtue of what it's like to remain in El Paso. Now, one of the nice things about an academic medical center is we tried, again, to build practices or build efforts that are unique or comprehensive, and I can't add anything more to what's been said about the stroke program here. For those of you that, and like myself, that take this for granted, 5 years ago, this wasn't even on the radar screen. And what has happened with UMC and the partnership we've had with UMC to develop a comprehensive stroke center that is receive the top accolades across the United States and the American Heart Association is pretty remarkable. And it wouldn't happen without the commitment. Now, if you've had a stroke or had a patient or a relative that's had a stroke, it's devastating. So to be able to get these patients timely treatment where the stroke symptoms could be completely resolved is absolutely amazing. Now, I don't want to have Dr. Cruz have a big head. He was just named a Neurocritical Care Society Fellow. It's an international organization, and it's based a lot to the extent of the work that was done here. So he's already had accolades. I'm afraid he's going to want to raise after I do this, but I just want to acknowledge his honor. Another unique thing, and I think, Jacob, you may have mentioned this before, and that is new procedures that help your GI patients, our GI patients, avoid surgery, doing endoscopic ultrasonography. This is Dr. Antonio Mendoza-Ladd, who received the training in this. This is being able to treat gastric bypass patients that have difficulty, people that have cancer and gallstones that are either not surgical candidates or considered to be a high risk for surgery. And this can be done not with surgery, but can be done percutaneously using this endoscopic ultrasonography. And what I want to highlight, what's in the middle, it says this is a new procedure that only a few centers in the country are doing. And in the state of Texas, only Texas Tech Physicians of El Paso at UMC and some centers in Houston have done it. So we're very proud of the advanced GI lab, again, that UMC has committed to over the course of years that will service our patients well. Advancing science is one of the things that we're obviously interested in. One of our professors was asked to serve as the editor for a special issue of tuberculosis. Now you may think that's not a huge honor, like I'm not sure I want my name associated with tuberculosis. However, this is a researcher whose lab focuses on developing novel vaccines against TB. Now, you remember it was just a couple years ago where we had a TB patient at one of our local hospitals that caused mass screening of several hundred individuals as well. So this is a major issue here on the border. The reason why I mention this is this happened because of research findings that were presented during the 5th TB Research Symposium, which was held here in El Paso, which is pretty remarkable. We're just celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So to be able to hold these national, international symposium here in El Paso, they get published, is actually a fairly remarkable thing. It's not unique to this. There are a number of other different departments that do the same thing. You know, it's funny, I'm going to draw your attention to the very last one. This was scheduled months ago, December 5th, the 20th Annual Rio Grande Trauma Conference and Pediatric Update. It has a lot more relevance now than it did when we scheduled it 2 or 3 months ago. But what you can see is these are different symposium that are held for people around the United States to come to El Paso to see what are considered to be best practices. Now, I can't add much more to what Jacob said, except that you wonder how much of this is hype. People tell you what a great job was done here at UMC and how much of it is truth. At the Board of Regents meeting for Texas Tech University this last Friday, we are able to present notable faculty and heroes. And this is the slide I put up there. There are 16 healthcare providers and 2 CEOs that are heroes for El Paso and for the entire United States. What was done here at University Medical Center in the midst of a tremendous tragedy in a hospital, by the way, that had a full emergency room, that had ORs already scheduled, they had people up in the hospital. They didn't stop what was going on here. We were just asked to absorb 14 or 15 trauma patients, the most severe trauma patients, by the way, assaulted with assault rifles, and asked to save their lives. As Jacob said, people came in from everywhere. There are 18 surgery residents, 15 were here. The only 3 that weren't here were out of town. Same thing with our ortho residents, they were here. Chief residents, they were here. These were some of the physicians that took care of them, some of them in general surgery, some of them in trauma surgery, some in pediatrics. Again, my hat's off to Cindy and her group as well for allowing Jared to care for those patients, decompress the emergency room and have them receive great care as well, and ortho as well. And it's interesting, on Monday afternoon, I met with all the medical students and nursing students. For them, the nursing students, this was their second day on the job. This was pretty traumatic. That afternoon, I met with all the faculty and staff, and I had Nancy Weber, who was in the emergency department, Alan Tyrock, and Sarisha Reddy, who were all there to talk about it. And Alan said, you know who the heroes were? And I thought, well, I wonder which doctor is going to name. He said, it was housekeeping. Yeah. I said, I beg your pardon? I'm thinking he's suffering from PTSD already. He said, no. He said, housekeeping came down from wherever they were in the hospital and came to the OR to turn 4 ORs around within minutes. And he said it wasn't just housekeeping, it was dietary, it was registration, it was the blood bank. They gave 109 units of blood in the first several hours. It was pathology, it was transport. He didn't name any of the Texas Tech physicians. What he named was staff for UMC Hospital and El Paso Children's Hospital. So how much of it is hype? It's not hype at all. So you hope this never happens, but when you're well-trained, you hope that things are executed well. And in fact, the care was superb. One other note, just as you know, patients went here and they also went to Del Sol. I received a note from a person who runs the surgical services. The national, or the headquarters is in Dallas, Texas, but the surgeons who operated were operating at Del Sol. And he wrote the following note to Alan Tyrock the day following the shooting. He said, "It is a credit to you and the rest of the Texas Tech faculty that these surgeons are all so well trained." He's talking about the surgeons at Del Sol. Said, "Your teaching surgeons have magnified your skill, knowledge, and expertise well beyond what you directly see in front of yourself on a daily basis. You've cured disease and eased suffering for countless people who are in pain, and your teaching has allowed others to do as well. Your legacy was on full display this weekend as those who you trained went above and beyond their duty to save lives and comfort those that were injured. Your positive effect on the city of El Paso and the state of Texas can never be quantified." They're Texas Tech physicians that were trained here in El Paso at UMC. So, kudos.
Dr. Lane, thank you so much for that report. Any comments or questions for Dr. Lane?
If not, may we have a motion to accept the quarterly report from
So
Dr. Lane?
moved. I second.
Second. Yeah.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. DeGrode?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arieta?
Yes.
Thank you. We now move on to agenda item number 19, receive and take appropriate action on the semi-annual report from the University Medical Center Foundation. Ms. Leslie Lujan, Interim Foundation Director.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to give you an update from January through June for both foundations. This is our fiscal highlights, which shows from inception into current. And then this is our combined contributions back to both hospitals as of June. What I want to talk to you guys about in more detail is where we are budgeted, actual, and projected to end up on. So we are not going to make our goal for this year, and there's a couple reasons for that. We didn't hold a couple of the events on the UMC side that we normally hold, and we didn't actually secure some of the major asks. On the children's side, on some of our gala and CMN, some programs, they didn't meet their goals as well. But we are projected to finish the year out strong. We are pending several grants that we're waiting to get notice on that we think that we'll get. And then we do get a naming rights for UMC that's going to land within that time period. And on the children's side, there's still events and programs that we're expecting income from. These are some of the events that we've had within the past, well, from January through June for the Children's Foundation. And some of the naming rights that Taylor has secured. And then these are some of the UMC Foundation events. One of the biggest things that we have at the foundation is the El Paso Health Car Seat Clinic, and I hope you guys are familiar with that. It's a great program that Carolyn puts on through the Volunteer Corps. This our fiscal year stats to date. So families in attendance are 371. Children evaluated for safety is 655, which is huge. If you guys can imagine, if you guys have kids, your kid being in a car seat and not being, and sometimes that's just not, it's not installed properly. Sometimes it's not the right car seat, or sometimes it's been recalled. And so all the car seats are provided free of charge. And for this year, she's done 539 of those. We did have our Milagro Gala on June the 1st, and so we did net $115,789, and at the actual event, Hyundai did present the foundation with a $100,000 donation. Oh, sorry. Children's Miracle Network, they have been really busy with local and national campaigns. So these are some of the campaigns that they had within those 6 months. One of the newest things that they've been able to secure are Southwest Airline Raffle tickets. And so that's something that they're doing as a smaller fundraiser, but by a text to donate within the last couple months. Walmart, Supercenters, and neighborhood Walmarts kicked off their campaigns in April, and they both kicked them off with actually already doing a check presentation. They just wrapped up their campaign in July, so we'll have those numbers soon. But that's the biggest partner that we have is Walmart and Sam's. These are community events for Children's Miracle Network. These are pictures from the annual appreciation luncheon for the community partners. During the luncheon, the new Miracle Child is also announced. So this year, our Miracle Child is Andrea, and she's a patient of Dr. Yates. And so every year, we have a new patient from the Children's Hospital that represents Children's Miracle Network. These are grants that were received within that time period. And one particular grant, most of them went to the child abuse clinic for children's. One particular grant did go for a piece of equipment. So you can see those on there. And then these are ones for UMC Foundation. The biggest one is actually a direct-to-hospital grant for the Nurse Family Partnership. And to date, that program has actually graduated 24 first-time moms through the program. These are some of the items that we funded for Children's Hospital, just to name a few. The biggest thing on there is the ED expansion project that was funded. These items are in process to be funded for Children's Hospital. And so some of it's equipment, and then the last 3 are actually salaries for their Child Life Program coordinators. This is UMC equipment that's been funded. I did point out the pill counter and the glide scope. So one of the things that the foundation does is the volunteer corps raises money, the volunteers themselves, and they raised $50,000 and they hold a congress. And the volunteers and the kids hear presentations from the various departments, and then they get to decide how to give the money back to the hospital and to what departments. So that was held in April, and the pharmacy actually received a pill counter from that, and then the ICU got a glide scope from there. But they ended up giving $50,000 back to both hospitals within the past 6 months. These are some of the upcoming events. We are doing the Hyundai Hope on Wheels check presentation in August on the 27th, and we'll be sending an invitation to you guys for that. The really cool thing with this is they're also doing a handprint ceremony. So they're going to be bringing in a vehicle, and they're going to get patients to come out and put handprints on the car. So that's part of the ceremony and the check presentation. September is Go Gold Month for childhood cancer awareness. We are going to do a Hearts of Gold art exhibit that's going to feature our therapeutic arts patient artwork, and that'll be September 5th will be the kickoff for that at the International Museum of Art, but the exhibit will run the whole month of September. And again, we'll send you guys an invite for that if you guys can join us for that. This is a save the date, so this is very exciting, and hopefully you guys can join us. We're actually doing an unveiling of the Estella Casas Infusion Center for Hope and Healing, and that's going to be tomorrow at 2:30. So Estella has been very generous and given a gift to name the Infusion Center. Margarita, who does our Borderless Giving, she's holding her annual gala on the 29th, and that's actually held in Juarez. If anyone's interested in going, let us know. She's almost sold out all of her 60 tables, and she's almost a one-man show, so it's really amazing. But all of her proceeds go to benefit children from Mexico for orthopedic procedures here at El Paso Children's Hospital. Oh, and the last one is upcoming events is a Party for a Purpose that will be taking place October 5th. That's it. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arieta?
Yes.
Thank you. We now move on to agenda item number 20. Discuss and take appropriate action regarding representation by an attorney formerly representing the El Paso County Hospital District and is now presenting the Emergence Health Network, Mr. Omar Villa, Chief Legal Officer.
Good afternoon. As you know, the County Attorney's Office both represents the University Medical Center as well as Emergence Health Network. One of our attorneys, Anthony Martinez, recently transferred over to Emergence on August 5th, and per Rule 106 of the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct, we're seeking consent from the board for Anthony Martinez to work on matters which may involve previous work he's done at UMC as counsel for EHN. And per the rule, I'm disclosing to the board the existence of a potential conflict under Rule 106. Mr. Martinez may be participating in jail contract negotiation between Emergence Health Network and UMC. He may have knowledge of matters which would be beneficial to EHN, but number one, he would be precluded by his ethical duties under Rule 105 from disclosing anything he would have known in his role as representing UMC. And number two, his work on matters related to anything with the jail and jail contract negotiations was extremely limited, minimal, and most likely did not even touch any of the work Mr. Martinez did. His prior role as counsel to UMC may actually be of assistance in that contract negotiation. And if there was any litigation, the rules would prohibit him from actually being involved in any litigation between UMC and EHN. And in fact, the county attorney's office at that point would make a determination as to who would represent the parties. Most likely would not be someone from the county attorney's office in the event that litigation did happen. Hopefully we'll never get there.
Any comments regarding this? Is everyone okay? Or does anyone have any issues?
Just going to make sure to clear the conflicts if there's ever any.
But it sounds like you're on top of it, should that
Yes, sir.
happen.
I think it was Christy getting even. We took Omar, so she took Anthony, so.
I know, that's what happened.
Jim, did you have a comment?
Move approval?
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arrieta?
Yes.
Thank you. Agenda item number 20 is approved. We now move to agenda item number 21, and I'm going to read item number 21 and 22 into record. First, we will receive a presentation on changes to the Texas Open Meetings Act by Mr. Omar Villa, Chief Legal Officer, and then discuss and take appropriate action regarding the adoption of rules regarding public comment under the Texas Open Meetings Act.
Good afternoon. Just wanted to bring to your attention, as the Texas Open Meetings Act governs your roles as board members for the El Paso County Hospital District, some changes that are coming into effect effective September 1 regarding the Texas Open Meetings Act. Number one, just for your information, and I'll just run through these quickly and then go into a little bit more detail as to each one of these points. The definition of deliberation has changed. There is now a public comment requirement under the Texas Open Meetings Act. There have been some changes for emergency meetings, as well as some changes to the walking quorum rules. The definition of deliberation, it's amending Government Code Section 551001 sub 2. It now includes written communication. Previously, the rule had only discussed verbal communication between the parties. So essentially what this means is chain emails are actually codified now in state law. You cannot essentially reply all to an email if you're included the board members in terms of having communication amongst each other. That would be strictly prohibited under the Texas Open Meetings Act and the changes that take effect on September 1. The next one is, right now under the Texas Open Meetings Act, there is no requirement that public comment be taken in any meeting held by a governmental entity. The changes have added a new section 007 to the Open Meetings Act, which actually requires a governmental entity to accept public comment if requested by a member of the public, and as such, the governmental entity may adopt rules regarding that public comment, and I'll go into that as part of the second part of this discussion. The emergency meetings provisions have changed. Recently, the El Paso County Commissioners Court enacted this emergency meetings provision in light of the recent events on August 3rd. It would be rare that the hospital district would employ this provision, but in the event that we did decide to do so, they have expanded the definition of emergency to include civil disturbance, riots, and things of that nature, and it also reduces the public notice time from 2 hours to 1 hour. The walking quorum rule was strengthened from previous language. There was a case, Texas v. Doyle, which the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals recently invalidated the previous walking quorum rule. The legislature then amended Section 551143 to strengthen that rule. Essentially, for those of you, just as a refresher of a walking quorum, two things have to happen. Number one, there has to be some intent on the part of a board member to circumvent the Open Meetings Act, and with the intent that this communication travels in a chain where board member A talks to board member B talks to board member C talks to board member D, where a quorum is involved, and that would constitute a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act under this specific provision. Are there any questions in regard to any of the changes to the Texas Open Meetings Act?
Questions, comments?
I had a question with regards to the public comment. So we don't normally have a public comment item on the agenda, standing item. Most other public boards, I've seen that. Is that a requirement now?
That is not a requirement. I was actually in Austin on another matter when they were having the committee hearings on this, and that was a discussion of whether or not to have a requirement. But under the addition to the Texas Open Meetings Act, there's no requirement that there actually be a specific item dedicated to public comment. It's just now that if a member from the public requests to be heard on a matter that's on the agenda, then the governmental entity has to recognize that individual.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much.
How would we know that? Do we have a sign-up
Don't worry. Yeah, we're good.
form or something, or how, if someone wants to speak?
We have some rules in place now, and the second part of this presentation, I'd like to discuss those rules in terms of how we'd go about the mechanics of allowing individuals to speak.
Okay.
Are there any other questions?
No. Do we need a motion? No. Okay.
So in your packets, you were provided with the current rules regarding the public speakers, standard operating procedures, conducting board meetings, and public participation. In going through these rules, they do need some updating because the additions to the Texas Open Meeting Act have specifically allowed members of the public to criticize the governmental body, to criticize either the operations, any policies, any acts, omissions of the public body. The current standard operating procedures that this board had adopted in the past essentially has a provision on the second page under heading number 3, impermissible comments, about not entertaining comments on individual personnel or officials. What I would recommend is shoring that up just a little bit to ensure that we're not violating any provision of the amendment to the Open Meeting Act, which would essentially add that comments regarding criticism of acts, omissions, policies, procedures, programs, or services of the district are permitted. However, the board will not entertain comments on individual officials, employees, or board members in public session. So that would be my recommendation, to add that to our current rules. In addition, you've also been provided with the current rules adopted by the El Paso County Commissioners Court, which I think would further enhance the rules that we have, specifically the rules that they had adopted regarding rules of decorum and requests for accommodation. I would recommend that those be added to our current rules, and that we would adopt those rules with those additions.
Any questions or comments for Omar? in regards to this? Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arietta?
Yes.
Okay, recommendations stated by Mr. Villa are approved. We now move on to agenda item number 23. Discuss and adopt a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of a tax anticipation loan agreement with Branch Banking and Trust Company for fiscal year 2020, delegating matters relating to such loan agreement to authorized district officials and establishing parameters therefore, and resolving other matters incident and related thereto. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer.
Good afternoon, everyone. Behind tab O is the item that we had discussed at the most recent Finance Committee. There are two documents with that attachment. The first one is the term sheet along with the executive summary and then also the board resolution. What this matter is being brought forward to you is to assist a university to medical center as we enter the next couple of months, which typically are our lowest cash positions of the year and also fiscal year, from a standpoint to ensure that we are still able to do the required intergovernmental transfers for UMC. One, we have a uncompensated care IGT in the month of September, totaling close to about $19 to $20 million. We have a disproportionate share IGT in the months of October and November, about $7 million each, and then also in January, a delivery supplemental, the DISRIP IGT close to about $9 to $10 million. Now with that, when we do these IGTs are normally done the first week of the month, but then we don't receive the funds back until about the third or sometimes the fourth week of the month. So this is the kind of that bridge loan to help us with this financing. The contract is is for the period beginning September 1st, 2019 through February 28, 2020. The contract amount is up to $25 million draws. The interest rate is a 1-month LIBOR. Currently, that is at 2.27 plus 1.5%, so about 3.77%. The fees are $10,000 annual or fee due upon the closing date of each tax anticipation note. We do anticipate that once upon the receipt of property taxes that start coming in the middle of December, that we will probably pay off the tax anticipation note probably no later than January 31. So once we have our property tax receipts, that's when this tax anticipation note will be paid in full and closed. So with that, this was discussed during our Finance Committee and is now being brought to the Board of Managers for its further consideration and approval. One other item is that this item does require Commissioners Court approval as well, and we do plan to go to Commissioners Court on Monday, August 26th.
Any questions or comments for Michael?
Move to approve.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes.
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arietta?
Yes.
Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 24 and 25. Review and recommend for consideration by the El Paso County Commissioners Court the proposed fiscal year 2020 El Paso County Hospital District operating and capital budget. Agenda item 25, discuss and take appropriate action on the proposed 2019 tax rate for the El Paso County Hospital District. The 2019 tax rate is subject to the approval of the El Paso County Commissioners following public notice and hearings as required under state law. Mr. R. Jacob Cintron, President and CEO. Mr. Michael Nunez, Chief Financial Officer.
So this is just standard steps. We have our joint session tomorrow, and then a couple of board county commissioner meetings after that. I understand there might be a Friday meeting that might be added this week. So with this, I'll let Michael take it from here. But basically, it's just, this is what we're proposing, still subject to county commissioners' revision or approval.
Okay. So with that, there's been no changes or so far communication from from the court. There have been some questions that we've been corresponding back with the county budget office. Tomorrow morning will be the second budget work session beginning at 9, and from there we will just move forward. But right now, we do still anticipate moving forward with the budget that we have presented at the UMC Board of Manager work session, the Finance Committee, the first joint budget work session, which was showing an overall, I think those, right, I think decrease of about 1.3 million, or decrease of $1.3 million in terms of overall budget. Probably the main item that's going to be discussed is going to be the tax rate. With the tax rate currently that the current budget that we have proposed does go to the rollback rate, and the difference between the rollback rate and the effective rate is, in essence, when you see here the 119 million versus 113, so there's about a $6.4 million revenue difference between the rollback rate and the effective tax rate. But with that, unless there's any other further questions from the board, we will wait to see what the outcome of tomorrow's second budget work session. We did go yesterday to the court to propose the rollback tax rate. And again, that was not an approval, just to simply propose the rollback tax rate. There are tax rate hearings scheduled for next Wednesday. The first one, 6 p.m., Wednesday the 21st, and then also Wednesday the 28th at 6 p.m. at the county courthouse, with the final vote on the UMC budget and the tax rate to be on Monday, September the 9th. So that's what the calendar is for the rest, probably for the next 4 weeks.
I think there are a lot of us that appreciate the fact that you're pushing towards a break-even budget, because that's where we need to be year after year.
Yes, yeah, and that was with a lot of the discussion we had was individually, Carmen as well too. Probably the importance as well too, particularly that if we are considering a further bond issue, that with improvements that we've had over the past couple of years and getting closer and closer to a break-even budget, speaks big in terms of the rating agencies. Now, we did have our first surveillance call with Standard & Poor's probably about a week and a half ago. We are still in the follow-up question and answer session with them, but we do expect at least to get their initial draft probably within the next week to 10 days. We do have our second rating agency call with Fitch this Thursday. And then Moody's, they did reach out to us, but they are electing to wait until November timeframe till once after we have closed out the fiscal year.
So depending on what happens at the meeting tomorrow, might we see changes, or
we possibly
expect that?
We possibly could. There may be. I think some of the questions might be is if we do not go to the rollback rate, what impact does that do to the UMC budget? Whether would there be items that we would consider removing from the budget? So I guess it's kind of more kind of a wait and see in terms of what results. $6 million from the bottom line.
Okay, so I guess tomorrow we'll get a clear understanding of what direction we're going to go in and decide what needs to be done. Hopefully we can get some positive reinforcement as to what we're asking for, right?
That is correct.
Any other questions or comments for Michael or Jacob? I think we've all seen this budget in the past.
For the record, I think we do need to have action by the UMC Board of Managers, at least for approval of the budget as presented, along with the tax rate for consideration to be moved on to the Commissioner's Courthouse, or to the courthouse. But here's the specific language that I would like to read, and then the board can take action. The board proposes a property tax rate for El Paso County Hospital District doing business as University Medical Center of $0.26747 per $100 assessed value for the 2019 tax year, which consists of a rate of $0.214,921 per $100 assessed value for maintenance and operations, and a rate of $0.052826 per $100 assessed value for payment of the principal and interest on the debt of the district.
Do we have a motion?
So
Do we need two motions, though? Don't you want to read?
This one for the tax rate, and then another one for the overall approval or, consideration of the budget to move forward. So this is simply for the tax rate.
Okay.
So move on the tax rate.
Second?
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arietta?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And may we now have a motion on the,
And then now a motion just to move the budget as presented forward to the Commissioners Court.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Olguin?
Yes.
Mr. Fernandez?
Yes.
Mr. DeGroat?
Yes.
Mr. Gallardo?
Yes?
Ms. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Volk?
Yes.
Ms. Arietta?
Yes.
Thank you. The budget, as it stands at the moment, is approved by the Board of Managers. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, may we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. The Board of Managers meeting is officially adjourned. The time is
Great job, guys.
3:58 PM.
Good job.